All right.
You're welcome.
We're again, it's 10:01. Residents Council meeting for April 3rd starts. We have a quorum. Mr. Smith is off playing golf in South Carolina, so we wish him well. Playing golf anywhere is doing well in my book. I have no opening remarks. We will like to go through the session. I know that there is a service that's starting at 11, so try to get everybody through this and on their way to that. Okay, the council is open for ears, session number 1, Yakov.
Anybody? Very quiet crowd today.
Okay.
Maybe there's anybody on the Zoom?
Yeah, any Zoomers? Oh, okay, thank you.
That was fast.
Well, it's, sometimes you gotta talk and sometimes you gotta listen. Today you're gonna listen. All right, we're now in our meeting session. First order of business is the approval of the minutes from March 20th. Do I have a motion? Larry? Second. Kathy? Any discussions? Yes.
Correction. Under committee reports, mental health and wellness, it is said that the registered dietitian Tanya Lopez works primarily in the health center. I think strictly speaking, you should say her office is in the health center.
Any discussion on that? Okay, so we'll change the minutes, so noted. Yeah, well, with that correction, do we have a vote to approve?
Question,
Good.
what's the difference? Does she do dietitianing for
She
the other
covers,
place?
she covers as a Sodexo employee, not a Woodland Pond employee. She works throughout the institution.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, that clarification, vote to, on the motion, all approve? 8-0, thank you. Okay, communications received,
Yes, one communication via the cubby, a note was left in which a resident expressed concern that some residents who have been ill with a respiratory illness may be coming out of their apartments too soon, still coughing and blowing and not bothering to wear a mask. I consulted with our golfing president. And he agreed with me that that is more appropriately taken up by Michelle. I duly forwarded the message to Michelle. She had agreed, and that's where it was left.
okay. Thank you. Report sent to secretary. Okay, old business, they wanted me to update everybody on the process of the bylaw change. We had issued a calendar that was a rough outline of the steps that we were gonna take. We issued a letter explaining the changes that we had proposed. And we issued what the revised bylaws would look like. And that was all done the day after the meeting on the 21st. So it was sent out to everybody on on constant contact. So if you didn't get it, please, there were copies left at the concierge and reception. To date, we had one Q&A for the independent living people. We had a good number of people attend. Lots of good dialogue, good points of view and concerns. Those were noted. Yesterday, we held a session in the assisted living. Yes.
Right, Tuesday.
Thank you. Time flies and we're having fun, yeah. Anyway, we had a session over there, we did have some attendees and went through the process and what we're trying to do and got their feedback as well. So as a point of what we're trying to do is on the 11th, we will close the door if you want the getting feedback, so you still have time. If you want to write us something, use the Woodland Pond Residents Council email address or write a note, sign your name, put it in the cubby. All of those will be compiled into a document that will be used by the council to review and judge the need for the change to the direction that we're taking. So then at the next council meeting, we will present to the residents a final version that we will be asking to go to the association's members for voting. And that will the voting will take place start May 28th at a special session that's gonna coincide with the quarterly association meeting. May 28th, that's a Wednesday, starts at 3:00. And that so far is what we have on the bylaw changes. Okay, any questions from the council? Okay. All right, let's go through committee reports. We'll start with Kathy. Hold on, Kathy, the microphone's coming.
The Benefit Fund Committee met on March 19th. And our fund balance is now $189,000. And that money's the $4,000 is guaranteed for the scholarship piece. And just to make sure everybody knows, everybody who has received a scholarship through this program that had them giving work to us, whether it was maintenance or whoever, they committed to stay. Every single person has completed that process and abided by their contacts. We're gonna meet with the Community Foundation. I, as a new member, and as things always begin to change into councils, we are gonna meet with Kevin Quilty, who is our liaison to the Community Foundation, just to look at how the fund works with the foundation and to see if they have any other systems, priorities, if they could help us with some brochure development. So that was, that will happen. The benches are all, the payment for them is all in the system at this point in time. And we're waiting to see if there's any demand for more. We developed thank you notes. It's very brief. It's one side of a small square. To be given to people who donate to the benefit fund and or sometimes a notation if it's a person who's living. So we went through the design process. Everybody unanimously agreed on one 2 months ago. And last meeting, we were able to actually see them and hold them. They're done very tastefully. And it's maybe I'll ask Ann to put one up in the mailroom just to see what they look like. So, and the other piece of this, when we're talking about scholarships and the question that was raised here, you know, who gets that, where are they, what kind of group are they in? And Michelle attends our meeting, so we were talking about that, and we are going to expand our monthly, in the monthly newsletter we get, the space for the benefit fund will increase so that residents will know where the scholarships are treated, you know, numbers, not names. And so we'll be able to look at those and you'll be able to see them too. So that's a process. And the donation posters, the new ones should be up. I have to admit, I have not had time to look. I was strolling on the beach in Long Island. But they're all completed, we're just waiting. They all they are, thanks. And that's it, we're gonna start working on new goals. That's it for benefits.
Hey, Kathy, here's some questions.
Kathy, I think I misunderstood since this, your meeting was before the last council meeting? The day before, and you
Yes.
sent me the notes.
Yes,
I thought that's what you wanted in the minutes.
that's.
They're in the minutes of the last meeting.
Okay. So. Oh, I gotcha. All right, yes. I understand now, because we were crossing about stuff.
When you refer to the posters, I assume you're talking about the signs, two separate signs up on the wall opposite the hostess desk.
Recognition of donors.
Yeah,
Yes.
the names of the donors and the names of any honorees or
Yes,
those memorialized. So I guess I think of those as more than posters. Posters sounds kind of temporary, shall we say.
okay.
But is there it seems to me that we ought to be able to get those up for the preceding year, in this case 2024, before the beginning of April of the next year. I just wonder if there's anything the benefit fund can do to expedite that.
We actually would try to, what goes on those actually has to go through management approval and a whole bunch of things and printing. Because we don't take it to the printer, it actually goes through the administration people here. So I'll ask, and I think that's a valid request. And we'll see, it's, the process is, once we make them, we pretty much,
Out of your hands.
yeah. But doesn't mean it has to stay that way. We'll ask. Thank you.
Another question.
Okay.
Why is the balance so large, $189,000? Why isn't it more being spent, especially on things like scholarships?
Well, we had the one early increase this year, but the benefit fund can actually provide a lot of different things like the earnings, anything that enhances the life of residents is also included in that benefit fund. It's gotten to that point because we've had a number of large donations. And what I guess the committee chairs and those of you who have been here longer might know, if there is something that will enhance the life of the residents, in addition to doing more scholarships, then we should certainly take a look at it. There are some restrictions and I don't know, trying to search for the right word, but those requests, we work with the community fund people to do that. So it depends monetarily wise on where things are in the cycle and when is a good time to take stuff out and when is it not. So that occurs on a higher financial level, but certainly things that we could do.
Maybe one point, Evelyn, on this is with the upcoming renovation projects. It doesn't make sense for them to go try to do something that may ultimately have to be taken down or changed because of the renovation and changes in the process of that. So I could see you're building it up, so but it's still a fair question. There are other things that can be done, like we had suggested maybe increasing the our scholarships. But they're doing a good job running it. Appreciate it. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, you want to talk about library?
Library committee has not met, they meet on the first Monday and that's the 7th, so we didn't have our meeting today.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Mel, would you like to?
The art and decor and landscape.
Hold on, Mel. Microphone.
The art and decor and landscape have not met since the last council meeting, so I don't have anything.
Okay, how about landscape?
Same thing.
Okay,
Oh,
so Evelyn has no reports.
I'm no report.
Larry has no reports. We're down to June.
Oops, I've lost it. The whole report has disappeared. Okay, the dining, this is a long one, unfortunately. The dining committee met on Tuesday, April 1st, and some information from Phil. Instead of the dollar sign after the balances, it will be replaced with points. Actually, this means nothing, but don't be upset about it. Michelle didn't want us to think in terms of dollars, and apparently in the industry, points are used instead of dollars. Menus will be printed on larger pieces of paper, legal size, in a larger font at the request of many residents. The 15-minute seatings are going well. There's less crowding in the hall and faster service in the dining room. The new reusable 3-part takeout containers will be introduced during Earth Week. There are big discussions about how to finance them and how to ensure their return. We don't know yet exactly how that's going to happen. The Seder will happen on Saturday, April 12th from 5 to 9. It will cost $60 and it's by reservation only. There's a maximum of 70 seats. So if you're interested, please sign up with the concierge right away. You may bring a guest, but you've got to sign up in advance, and then you will be billed for yourself and your guest on the next month's bill. There'll be an Easter brunch on Sunday, April 20th at the usual times, and ice cream socials will occur monthly starting in April 22nd, sponsored by the Brain Health Group. The QR code to access Happy or Not machine will be made available on the Connected Living app. Some people are having trouble getting onto it. If you don't want to use the machine, you can scan the QR code, and then you can answer and put in your comments on your device. And that means you won't be cut off in the middle of a sentence like you are with the Happy or Not machine. So that's a good thing. And there were some questions and comments made from the committee and the guests. Question about the size of the wine volume. Apparently 5 ounces is the official pour, although probably sometimes they are more generous. A diabetes presentation from our nutritionist was requested. I'm going to send you all this. There was a request to substitute paper straws instead of the plastic straws, and this probably will happen. I don't know quite how soon. And there were some negative comments about the reduction in the choice of rolls, and I think that may be revised. We may go back to the old system, or there may be more choices. The new system is inconsistent and is not working that well. So that's the dining committee. The sustainability committee met on Wednesday, April the 26th. Those attending expressed their sustainability concerns, and Sue Gilder gave a report on our week of celebration for Earth Week, which is starting on Monday, April 21st. And it's fully listed in the recent edition of Woodland Life. And then I had to leave, so I'm sorry, I don't know. I'll try and find out what happened at the rest of the meeting, sorry.
Are there any questions for dining before we go from the council? Okay, no, all right, any on sustainability? Okay, having none, oh, have one.
The paper straws don't work very well, and I don't see many people using straws. But when I eat in the dining room, the one person I know who needs it, they give her a plastic straw, and I don't know if she could drink with a paper straw. I just want to point that out.
I should pick them up.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Or he would.
All right, Elson, Soon as you're out the door.
Physical plan first, if I may.
You may.
Thank you. Eric Jones was present, representing Tom Tango. He said the pool pack is working fine now and the fitness room and pool should be open. It was reported that erosion on the walking trail is getting worse. No new information on maintenance of that. All elevator issues have been resolved. Some damaged downspouts will be replaced. We have hired a new gardener, a woman who's got about 30 years of gardening experience. She'll be not full-time, but almost, and she'll be working with Mark Eisenhandler. We may or may not hire the high school kids occasionally during the summer, but she's to replace some of the younger people we had last year. That clock on the wall, which was 2 minutes behind your clock, all of the clocks will be replaced with Wi-Fi clocks as soon as the renovation is done. But they've approved the money for it. And John Ortner requested that if we have activities downstairs during renovation, that there should be adequate bathrooms down there. And that was it for the physical plant committee.
Any questions from the council? Carl?
Just a comment,
Mm-hmm.
Carl, comment.
Like,
The pool is open, I swam lap this morning, yay.
I'm going to one for the water aerobics. Yay.
The health center. Jill Ordner reported that the health center committee is now completing work. My minutes are terrible, but the issue is requests for how bodies are treated with our last minute request for after death, what's done with us. And she's trying to get the records straight on that. Phil Neal reported that the health center has a new unit manager named Ryan Squires. Oh, this is what I was trying to say. I'm sorry, it was June Porter. This new health manager is working with Alice Ruffing to systemize organ donation plans. So they're working on that. That I reported on who is eligible to vote in the elections to approve the new bylaws. And I reported that everybody who is a member of the association can vote. That Sue Close, who is the activities manager in the health center, will determine who actually does vote. She will use her judgment and approach people individually. You're questioning that. You want to question me now? No? Margaret Niehaus reported that in the dining committee, Jared is going to personally interview all residents of skilled and assisted living. Talk about complications in the menu. Jared has been invited to speak to them. Okay, now the most significant item on my report is that it was reported that all 40 beds in skilled nursing are now occupied. And this is an issue that I would like to bring up in today's session with Michelle. How we deal with overcrowding, particularly how we're going to deal with overcrowding when we build 100 new beds. We still will fit within the demands of New York State, the ratio will be adequate. We've been told that we will be adequate. But I think the fact that all 40 beds have been occupied at one time this week shows that the standards of New York may not really be adequate, and I would like the council to address this issue. That's it.
I think it's not 100, it was like 70 new.
70 new beds?
I don't think it's 100.
Well, then, you have concern about the capacity of skilled nursing, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, why don't we address it with Michelle when she comes,
I appreciate that.
okay? And I'll let you articulate it since you brought it up,
Okay.
okay? All right, anything else? Questions for,
You correctly identified the new unit manager, Ryan. But I don't quite understand. It's my belief that he is unit manager only for assisted living and garden view, not skilled nursing, which has its own separate unit manager. Yet you, I think you said, and correct me if I'm mistaken, that this new gentleman, Ryan, will be involved in discussions regarding disposition of our departed. And I don't.
No, I went back on that. I misreported that. This is,
Who's going to be doing that? That's a basic question.
I have to go back to my other notes. I know Alice Ruffing is working on that. I can tell you, but it'll take me a minute to find the information.
The new unit manager is responsible for the assisted living and the garden view elements of the health center only, not skilled.
Okay.
I share Carl's concern about the capacity of the health center, but I would add assisted living. I think 40 assisted living beds may not be adequate when we have 70 new residents.
I'd like to suggest that possibly, at least tangentially related to this, may be the kinds of standards that are exercised by the marketing folks when they admit people into independent living. Perhaps some of those folks aren't really, strictly speaking, eligible for being in independent living from the get-go. I mean, if we come here at fully meeting standards and then things happen, which certainly I can attest to, that's one thing, but maybe a few people who go into assisted living, independent living, shouldn't be there in the first place. I don't know.
okay, from the standpoint of the council, on this issue of where we are with, the new, I'm gonna call it Woodland Pond 2.0, the increased, residents. And the ability of our health center to handle that is probably a topic. Okay, we're bringing it up now. I would like to suggest that, to dump that now on Michelle, I think is very unfair. But I would like to do is, as a recommendation from the council, that we have a discussion, she come and discuss it with the council, at her convenience in the next month. Is that all right?
Well, but that means appraising her of our concern today
Yeah,
and then setting a future meeting to discuss it,
yes,
unless she wants to say anything about it today.
that's up to her, yes.
Yes. Okay.
But from the standpoint, I want to set expectations. I don't want us to put this before her and have her give us an articulated,
Much better the way you're suggesting.
okay, all right. But we'll do that when she gets here in a minute. But that's running slow. Okay, so any other questions for Carl on health? Okay, that takes care of all of our committee reports. There are no topics to review. And I see from Dave's thing, there was no new business to be added. But we will discuss the capacity situation for the health center and the new.
I wonder who, yeah, it's the office one. They leave.
Gordon, could you mute your, please? We're picking up background noise from you, Gordon. Okay, last item, yes, running right on time here. April 17th for connections, will be a review with Dawn Sangre to be interviewed by George Brown on sustainability and the committee and how that's working. And then on May 15th, Joe Constantino will be interviewing Matt Romer, our fitness instructor, as part of Council Connections. And I think that's pretty much it, right, Yakov?
At this point, there is no decision about June, July.
Okay.
It's time to
But
be-
we could, make it, see how it works. Okay, that's the end of the business part of council today. What I'll do is waiting for Michelle to show up. We'll go into ears session number 2. Carl, if you could. I see some hands up. Please identify yourself, although you don't need to, ma'am.
The initial I, Panor, two things. When June, the Sustainability Committee, you said met on April 27th, I believe you meant March.
I did, thank you. 26th, yeah.
I just wanna point out with the benefit fund, it started, I believe, 15 or 14 years ago with just about $5,000. So it's grown part by donation and part by good investments. And so that's where a lot of the money has increased. But as a suggestion, this year, somebody was very kind to me and I didn't know how to kind of thank them or repay them. I made a donation to the benefit fund in their name. They get a thank you. I get a tax deduction. But it's just a way that also we can benefit the benefit fund. So just a suggestion.
Thank you. Comments on it?
Yeah, I can't speak as to exactly when the benefit fund under that name or any other name actually was created. I can say that in, I believe, 2019, the management of that money, which heretofore had been within house, was passed over to the community foundations of the Hudson Valley. And I think, and you've alluded to this, I think partly due to their good management, that they invest that money, which we had not been doing. So that's another reason for the growth of the fund
And they cover all the nonprofits.
in the whole mid-Hudson area. Yeah, I mean, just to pick a name that you'll recognize, the Mohonk Reserves money is with them. And a variety of individuals. I can tell you that 2 former now deceased residents, Alan Fisher and his wife Renata Belleville, had their own private fund held through the community foundations, just as an example. So it isn't all organizations per se.
Okay, thank you. Yes,
Alice Ruffing, since Carl brought up the topic of organ donation, I'd like to bring you up to date on what I've been doing. I have been in touch with the people in Ulster and in Albany and the state level. And I've found out, much to my disappointment, but it's logical. If one passes in skilled nursing, it is not possible to be an organ donator. You cannot do it. If one wants to donate organs, you must be in a hospital where there is the proper machinery and things in place that make it possible to deal with the organs in a timely fashion, because the window is very short. So in one sense, we're disappointed, but on the other sense, we have knowledge, because if our loved one goes to the hospital and it's clear that the end is near, and you know that they're a donor, that they have expressed a desire to be an organ donor, it's possible for you to bring it to the medical people's attention. Otherwise, in a stressful situation, it could be overlooked. We were in a similar situation ourselves, and we were the family that made it known to the medical people before they ever suggested it to us. So I just think that's good information for people to be aware of. And it closes the issue of, is it possible to be an organ donor when I pass in skilled? No, it is not going to be possible.
yes, go ahead. Thank you, Alice, for enlightening us as how this process is working. Yes, Jakob?
Yeah, in regards to that, is that something that it's technically impossible to be done on a skilled nursing facility?
Yes.
Like organ harvesting, you mean? Yeah, no, we can't harvest the organs here. We're not certified to do that. That's hospital-based stuff.
But the taking, I mean, ambulance travel to an hospital is minutes, I mean, well, not minutes, probably, less than an hour, something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the logistics of how it would all work out. Philip and company have dealt with it in the past. We haven't had an issue here where anybody's wanted it in the past, to my knowledge. We've had some people that indicated that they wanted to donate their bodies to science, and that we've facilitated, like with Albany Med and some other things. But Philip, I know he's actively talking with you guys about it, isn't he, Alice?
Yes.
Okay, so I don't wanna overspeak, because I don't know the details, but I do know, obviously, just anecdotally, you have a time crunch. You've gotta get the body to the place that's gonna harvest the organs, but it is done from nursing homes.
Is that a topic that should be explained to the residents at a meeting or something?
I mean, I think it could be something that if we have an interest, it could be discussed at the health center committee meeting or something. I mean, it's almost 16 years. This is the first time it's come up, so I don't think it's like a huge topic of interest. But, you know, not everybody's a candidate. You know, so.
Potentially, a lot of people are candidates,
Yeah,
potentially.
potentially.
And people may be
But-
interested in the topic, that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think we could just table it for now. I think we have to figure out the logistics, and I need to follow up with Philip on it, but I would suggest that the next conversation about it happen at the health center committee. Or I think the women's talk is discussing it too, the women's group. Isn't that where it came up?
Yes, the topic came up at the women's group, because a lot of the people there were potential donors. And I think I've answered that question. If they go to skilled and they pass in skilled, it's not going to be possible for them to donate. It's not the same thing as donating your body to science. Insofar as organ donation, you must be in a hospital. I've gotten that straight from Albany. It only
Okay.
happens from a hospital setting where a person is on life support. and then the necessary transition can take place in a practical timeframe.
So what would happen then, as I'm playing this forward, what I speculate would happen is if somebody was dying and they were an organ donor and they were transitioning to end of life, they have to get to the hospital alive. And then the pursuit of the organ donation would have to happen there.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that makes sense to me from a medical perspective. So we can explore it a little bit more, but I mean, there hasn't been like a huge demand for it, and most of our residents, you know, like it wouldn't be an option if you died in independent living, you know, and people that are on hospice, I don't know how that gets handled, but we can look into it more, it's a new topic for us.
Okay, since you and I met yesterday, we would like to move a subject up on the list that's not on your list, came up this morning.
Okay.
Discussion about the, right now, the concern or the perception is the assisted living and skilled nursing are at capacity. And the question is, how are we viewing that situation presently? And then when we add 60 to 80 new units in the future, how are we positioned? The council has agreed to bring the subject up to you, but you don't have to answer it today.
Oh, I'm prepared to answer it. So the first is a question though. Where is the supposition that we're in capacity on any of those units coming from? Because we're not full on any of those units. Every single unit has capacity.
Well, the issue came up because Phil Neal reported that the skilled nursing was at capacity. I know it isn't today, but as of the last meeting, it was at capacity.
It was just for one day, and that's not unusual. I mean, there's been times in our history that we've been at 40. People come and go from skilled nursing, but I'm ready to talk about the bigger picture, since I think that's the question. We have always had our approach to this has always been, because the health center is such a money driver here, because of the direct admissions that we have to stay as full as we can with also having capacity for our residents. So the way we've always worked that, and I think most of you know this, is every Tuesday, our team meets religiously to talk about those residents that need care so that we're holding beds. And then on top of those beds that we know that are coming down the pipeline, we always keep a cushion for the unknowns. So that's the state that we're in right now, no different than normal. That meeting is what's crucial in our communication to know who's in the hospital, who has surgeries coming up, because what's important for everybody in this room to know, and whoever's online, is that we have a special dispensation from the state to allow up to 35 direct admits into our health center, because our health center was 35 units oversized from day one. So we have folks in the health center that are direct admits under that regulation. That cash flows a lot of what happens at Woodland Pond. So if they weren't here paying full rates, because they're not under contract, they're not under life care, they're paying market rates. If they weren't here paying market rates, you wouldn't be as subsidized as you are all the contract holders. So it's very important that we continue to maximize that. But, you know, our worst case scenario is ever having a situation where a resident needs a level of care and we don't have a bed. Knock on wood, that's never happened in 16 years. So our process works very well in that we keep it as full as we can to keep that cash flow coming in with that, 35 direct admits. And then as we need to create capacity, we'll decide, we're not gonna fill a bed that goes out by attrition and so forth. To that point, we have closed our waiting list down from the outside for over a year. The waiting lists have just gotten so long, we're not adding any new people to the waiting list because we just haven't really been bringing in new direct admits and so forth. The other thing is the other pressure release valve that we have very much in our control, should there ever be a really significant situation, is, as you all currently know, that our current policy on private duty companions is only those people on hospice can have private duty companions 24/7. The primary reason for that is because in the communities that don't have that restriction, many people in independent living would opt to have 24/7 care paid for privately rather than moving into the health center. And then what happens is your independent living starts to look like a nursing home. So communities usually try to find a way to balance it. Woodland Pond balances it well in that we allow companions on limited basis for people that need it, but then once you need 24/7 care, as long as you're on hospice, you can have that. But if we had a capacity issue or we wanted to reevaluate that, that's not a regulation, that's a choice of Woodland Pond. And when you read that policy, it allows for management discretion in any situation. We have people all the time that say that they'd rather stay in their apartment with 24/7 care or in their cottage. But then, ultimately they realize that's gonna cost a lot of money, or it's very hard to coordinate. If you don't have a live-in person, it's very hard to coordinate 24/7 care. If the families don't like to deal with it, so oftentimes we'll give them the ability to do it, and then they throw their hands up and say, I can't coordinate the care. The ones where it's been successful have been the live-ins. We've had a few that have had live-ins that have been successful, but there aren't a lot of people that are doing that either. Like you can't get them easily. So normally what would happen, like a lot of you remember Lionel was with Henry Oaks for many, many years. And Lionel was like a fixture around here at Woodland Pond. When Mr. Oaks died, Lionel said, please keep me in mind because I love Woodland Pond and I'd like to do that again. But we haven't had a need for somebody that was willing to have a one-to-one. So there's a lot of different ways we can handle it. Suffice it to say, it's something we actively manage all the time. Knock on wood, we've never had a situation where someone didn't have a bed when they needed it, and that's our worst case scenario. But there's a multitude of different ways we can release the pressure on the census.
Okay, one thing I'd like to question, I heard you say, you've closed the waiting list to identify what waiting list.
Direct admissions into the health center.
Okay,
So we have, a 30-person Medicaid waiting list, for example, for skilled. We have more than a dozen private pay on a waiting list for skilled. We've got 24 waiting lists for memory care, 24 for assisted living, all private pay from the outside. And those people that are on the list were the last people to get added a year ago. We haven't added anyone new to that list, just because it was super stale. We weren't bringing people in. But when you're in the health center right now, although a lot of the people that you think have been here for a long time, a good number of them are not contract holders and did not come through independent living, as Larry can attest to. So we don't have to allow them in. That's not a requirement, but we can as needed.
Yeah, I think the problem, I think that you need to look at it from the perspective of which unit this individual from the outside might want to go into. Going into skilled nursing is one thing. Going into assisted living from the outside, I can tell you that there are some folks up there who have been here years in assisted living, having come from the outside.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that should make sense to do any longer.
Yeah, we haven't really been bringing in direct admits. I can't remember the last time we brought one into assisted living. We have on more recent occasion brought them into memory care and skilled, because those length of stay normally is shorter. But to your point, Larry, if you look at Woodland Pond, our actual experience, and the only way it's explainable is our quality of care. Our length of stay for our residents in the health center is much longer than it is in the real world. So we've got people in assisted living that have been there for 9 years, and the industry data says it should be no more than 3. So they've never been qualified to go back to IL, but they've gone to AL and they've excelled at that level of care. So we have to contend with this, but we do have some flexibility, and we manage it very, very actively.
Is there any, from the council, is there any further questions?
Yeah, that's fine, but what happens when we have 60 to 80 new residents?
So 60 to 80 new residents will not all need the health center at once.
No.
And our health center, we already know was 35% too big for our existing residents. So June, the bottom line is it's not our decision. The state would require us to build more. So when we talk about the approvals that Department of Health and Department of Financial Services give us, the number one thing that Department of Health is looking at is bed capacity in the health center. So if they looked at our census with the new, they know actuarially how many beds we would need, and they would require us to do it. It would not be our choice. So there's a protection there as well.
But the plan now is that doing that review, you really don't need to increase the health center.
As of right now, that's correct. The other thing that, and I don't wanna get into a whole philosophical conversation about this, but one of the things that would be very interesting for residents to begin to understand is that many communities across the country are completely getting rid of their skilled nursing facilities. They're selling them off or closing them, because they're incredibly hard to staff. People really shouldn't be going into skilled for long periods of time. There should be other ways senior living communities are handling it. So many are building now without skilled, or they're closing their skilled, or they're reassigning skilled beds to assisted living. So the whole model is changing. By the time we get to that point, if let's say we start moving people into independent living in 2031 in the new units, which is the plan. And actuarially, they wouldn't need to be in the health center for at least 5 to 7 years after that. So we're looking at 12 years down the road, and I think a lot's gonna change in that period of time.
All right, anything else from the council? All right.
Question. I thought you had said that nobody from the outside will be taken into memory care anymore. Is that correct?
No, what I said is we stopped adding new people to the waiting list. So the waiting list exists and it's existed for a long time, and we haven't added anybody new to the waiting list. But if we were to have a bed that opened, we could theoretically go to the existing waiting list. The last time we brought a direct admit into memory care was last June. That was the most recent one.
I thought that after that problem fellow was making so much trouble, you had to have a guard until you could get rid of him, that you made the statement that there would not be any outsiders admitted.
We can't say that we would never bring someone in, but we have total discretion over whether or not we're comfortable bringing someone in.
To cover.
Okay.
the point.
All right, so
If that's okay with council, I mean, if you want to think that we need to expand this for the public, for our residents, let Dave know what he.
and this is a topic we could certainly make like a highlight topic at a management Q&A coming up. If there's no problem, because we've got the whole team there, we can all speak to it, we can take questions. So if the council is agreeable to that, we can talk about that at the next management Q&A as a primary topic.
All right, let's take a few days and come up with a decision, come back to you with it.
Okay, that's fine, we're totally open to that. So the questions or the topics I'm gonna just speak about or engage on a conversation were the things that Dave Smith had asked us to talk about this week or just touch on. The first was primarily related to, it came up as a result of the communication survey. And then there was something else I asked for feedback from the council. But what Dave had asked is, what's the best way for me to collect information from the council if I want feedback? So we've talked about a couple different things in the last couple months where I've said, why don't you take 7 or 10 days and then get me questions or comments? What we have determined is it's going to be much easier if those comments, anytime this comes up, get collected by one person on the council. And I think Dave has offered to do that and be the point person rather than having them come to me directly, because things get lost in my inbox. You were in my office yesterday at 1 o'clock, and by that point I'd already gotten 250 emails, and that's a typical day for me. So this is more just process wise. I want the feedback, period. But it's easier if you all get it to Dave or to whomever the council's gonna get it to, and then I get one document. So that was on that topic. Specifically, the one thing I know that I asked about was related to if there were any specific functions that you would be desired to have in a new electronic communication system. So in other words, like the chat, the email, I just asked you to think about that because I think I told you that Jason and Terrell are actively in discussion with moving off of Connected Living and trying to consolidate everything into one system. So we can just reopen that, and if any of you have any things you would definitely like to see in an online system, like we can order our food online, we can make reservations, we can book transportation with concierge, like if those things are interesting to you, just think about it over the next 7 to 10 days and get that information to Dave, and I'll make sure it gets funneled to Terrell and Jason.
All right, so we've been given marching orders. We had this before. If you have more ideas and you've had time to think about it, but I think the close will be before our next residents meeting.
The next was just a old business following up on the discussion that we had where Jason had proposed considering room closures once a meeting starts. I brought the feedback back to him that that wasn't necessarily the most favored approach. And could we reconsider it and figure out some ways that we could maybe address the primary concerns? And the primary concerns really are, as we've identified them, kind of twofold. Number one, people sticking their head into a meeting and asking, what is this meeting? And that causing an interruption. And I think that through these signs, that alleviates a lot of that. I've heard a lot of positive feedback about the signs. I like them. I think they're attractive enough. You know, it's not a big waste of resources for us. Do you all agree that the signs are helpful?
Yes.
And continue them. So I think that makes a big difference with people sticking their head in or interrupting meetings. We generally think that closing the door and then having an usher 10 minutes in is disruptive. So what we're currently thinking is that for certain large meetings, to begin to keep chairs allocated for latecomers, but have them be in the back of the room, whatever the room is, so closest to the entrance, have the residents really understand that if you're late to a meeting, you're going to be sat in the back, you know, making sure that the other residents that are coming leave those seats that we're allocating for latecomers free. And that's gonna be an adjustment because there are some people that always like to sit in the back. But I think from a disruption perspective, the easiest thing is to have the newcomers or the latecomers go to the back. Or go to wherever's closest to the door, whether it's the front or the back or whatever, but basically you're disrupting less because you're going to the closest available seat. So right now, that's kind of what we're thinking we're gonna work on. Does anybody have any objection to that? And then the other thing that we had talked about that I think is gonna be a little bit more challenging to address, but I recognize that it's a problem. So I'm just telling you, I recognize it, but I don't have an immediate solution or answer right now, is people that are double booked or back-to-back booked. Because, you know, there are some people that are just chronically late and have nothing else going on. There are some people that don't know the thing, they realize it and come late, but a lot of you are involved in a lot of things. So then there's another whole category of people that are going from one thing to another, and if it goes right up till the last minute, you're inevitably gonna be late. So I recognize that as an issue. And I don't have an immediate solution, but I do recognize that that is a factor.
If I can go back to the signs outside the rooms for a moment.
Sure.
I think it's a great idea. They look fine. But I did notice over the weekend, some of them were not updated. So, you know, a Friday meeting list was still there on Saturday or even on Sunday.
Okay.
So somebody on the weekend needs to take it in hand.
Okay, very good. I'm making notes. I'm sure that is, we're working through a new system.
Of course, yeah.
But I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
Okay. The next thing that we just touched on was there was a call put out last week for residents that are interested in volunteering to be on a panel to not interview, but to meet the top candidates for the activities coordinator for independent living. And at this point, my understanding from Lindsay is that we do have several people that have expressed an interest in being on that panel. And a few people have asked, you know, how come we don't do this for every position? You know, we hire people, I mean, all the time, like we hire people every day. And there are positions that are more critical. So where we have successfully had a resident panel as part of the interview process has typically been always with any dining leadership changes, certainly. We did it with Matt Romer's position, and we did it with Grace Jurin's position before him. So the fitness coordinator, we've historically done it. Activities coordinator, we think it's critical. So we pick and choose those that we feel are most impactful to residents and really want to meet the needs of an evolving resident population. And we like to hear your voices. So, but that's why we just can't do every single position.
It was a question.
The invited speakers. So we're like 8 weeks into the new process, maybe 12 weeks with Bridget working directly with the different committees and so forth, and we're still tweaking the process and still tweaking the forms. It is my expectation that by the next resident council meeting that I am at, which will be a month-ish from now, you will have all had a draft revised speaker form and a speaker acknowledgement form, and given an opportunity to give any final feedback or questions on it. There have been a few things that have arisen that we want to make sure are definitely incorporated into the speaker acknowledgement form, particularly related to the identification of whether or not they're asking us for permission to sell something. I'm sure some of you have heard that this has come up as an issue. And that the handbook does allow for it as long as there's advance notice and advance approval by management. So we want to incorporate that right into the form, and for some people it won't be applicable, but this way it's just all in one place. Then this way we find out from them, what are you hoping to sell? And then also, what is the payment mechanism that's gonna be accepted? Because then when Gretchen puts it in the newsletter, she'll be able to say check, cash, Venmo, credit card, whatever, and everybody will be something different. But we want to incorporate those changes into the form. There's a few other changes too, so we're working through that. The other thing is process-wise, a few issues have arisen that has made it evident that it can't be only Bridget reviewing. She can make the final approval, but I'll give you an example. So Yakov, did he leave?
Yeah.
Okay. Yakov brought on behalf of Political Affairs Committee, Political Affairs Committee, 2 invited speaker forms to approve, both related to each other. One was Amanda Gatto, who is the current town supervisor in the town of New Paltz, and one Tim Rogers, who is the current mayor of the village of New Paltz. And Bridget didn't know the context of what was going on, and so when she went to approve the forms, on the face of the forms, it seemed like there was absolutely no concerns. What she didn't realize at the time, and I filled her in on this because of discussions that I had directly with Tim Rogers, is while it was posed as that they want to come and do an educational session on what the dissolution of the village and combining into the town would be, both of those people are also running for that office. Should the village dissolve and become just one town of New Paltz, they are now both publicly running for the town supervisor position. So when there's any kind of a political candidate, that elevates what has to happen from versus just an educational session. So it's gonna work out just fine. But Bridget didn't have the context on that. She didn't know that Tim was running. So what we've talked about is she should just at least run some of these by me, particularly if they're government officials or those kinds of things. Because I just may have more context than I have a different viewpoint because I have different conversations with people. She will ultimately be the final adjudicator of the situation, but like in this case with Tim and Amanda, they're both approved to come. I've asked Yakov and Bridget to have a meeting with me next week so that we can be exactly sure that we know what the agenda is. So like if there's an educational component, which of the 2 is gonna present it? Are they both gonna have a chance to do the educational component? And then is the Political Affairs Committee expecting them both to come in and campaign for themselves, which could be allowed as long as they're both there or have both been invited to. But I just wanna make sure that we're all very clear on what's expected. So we're just kind of working through things. So long story short, I'm gonna recircle back on the feedback that I've gotten from a bunch of people. I've gotten some written feedback, I've gotten some verbal feedback, and then my goal is with a week's notice before the next meeting that you get an updated draft of the form.
Thank you. That's all you and I covered, and I think Dave would be pleased we got through the list.
Okay.
Um,
There's
So-
something I thought about this morning on the way in and I said, oh, I'm gonna talk to the residents council about it. Oh, I know what it was. This is not something we discussed yesterday. It came up in meetings that I had later. I know. So if I may, how do I wanna start this? You all know that I can't be everywhere at once. And I have a lot on my plate. Surprise. So one of the things that Woodland Pond tries to do is allocate leadership resources to be liaisons to certain committees that really appropriately need to have a management liaison. Dining, physical plant, health center committee, benefit fund, finance, so forth. I did design and decor. And my expectation is that when those people are at those meetings, that they are serving the residents and those committees in a way that I would expect, which is with respect, with an open mind, with listening, with collaboration, without making residents feel marginalized about their ideas. So that's a collaboration and it's respectful. And also, the other thing that I can't keep track of all the time is what's open on individual committee lists. And that's hard to track. But what I'm asking of the council, because my understanding is that every single of those standing committees has a liaison from the council, is that there be an emphasis or at least an attention paid to the fact that I want feedback if the management person that we have allocated is not working in the way that I am expecting them to. I need to know that because ultimately I'm responsible to make sure that that's working. And I don't attend those meetings. So I have to rely on the residents council to tell me like this dynamic is not working or this incident occurred at this meeting, you should be aware of it. I need your eyes and ears on that because ultimately I want those people at those meetings to be helpful and collaborative with the residents and not creating tension and not creating any sort of a feeling of being dismissed. So I'm inviting you to please escalate those concerns as the liaisons to the residents council and not just report on what's being done. But if you're running into any challenges with Woodland Pond in any way at those meetings, I think it should be escalated from the liaisons to the council. And then I would ask the council to escalate that to me. Likewise, related to open items, something came up to me yesterday, which was very concerning. There's a committee, I was speaking with a couple of people in the committee and they had indicated that there was an issue that had been like on the open items list for that committee that was like 6 months of meetings and it kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And the Woodland Pond liaison to that committee kept punting it and like not attending to it. And the folks that I was talking to assumed that I knew that. But I don't get minutes or open items lists from the committees. So if there are things that are sitting there and stagnating and it's because Woodland Pond is not acting on something, I need to know that. So every committee likes to handle things differently. I mean, years ago, there used to be open items lists and concerns lists. They would call them concerns lists, remember? Yes. They'd be maintained and then you'd say, are we taking this off the concerns list or are we leaving it on? I know it used to happen at the council and some committees adopted that and I would look at those because I know like where do we need to allocate our resources? Where is Woodland Pond holding something like this up? I'm bringing this up because I want to make sure we're working collaboratively and that your concerns are being met. My team is working with you collaboratively and you're getting what you need from us with the recognition that I can't be at every meeting. So I'm just inviting more feedback. I know that oftentimes it's just a report of what's going on in the committee, but the dynamic of the committee and the interrelationship with the Woodland Pond staff is very important to me. So I'm inviting you to please escalate those concerns.
When, if ever, is it appropriate to either copy Lindsay on things that we want to get to you or use her as a primary initial contact?
100% of the time.
Okay, so
I would love it if you did everything through her because she keeps me on track.
well, I'm happy to do that, but you know,
And I can certainly say that in my communications, which is to say, you know, she's basically an extension of me. And oftentimes, somebody will come and need something from me, and actually Lindsay knows a secret way that she can get it done just as well without getting it to me. She's like a,
you don't need to promote her to me.
at this time, I have absolutely no concerns about anybody taking anything that they would take to me. If you're comfortable with taking it to Lindsay, take it to Lindsay. The other thing that came up, and this is a little bit more sensitive, and I'm just telling you what I was told. Or what I was asked. I guess there was an issue that came up, at a couple of resident councils ago that I wasn't at. And something came up about one committee or another, and there was a specific conversation about the chair of that committee.
Speaking of the devil,
I wasn't gonna interrupt, but you did have an 11:15. I have an 11, yes, okay, I will be done in a minute. Thank you, Lindsay. So it's somebody that was in the crowd, and somebody that's here right now, had recognized that there was a discussion that happened about some committee report and, you know, a question about the demeanor or something of the committee chair, and I guess names were named. The person in the crowd felt like that was kind of off limits, and if there was like a specific personality issue or concern about a committee chair or somebody on a committee, that should be done executive session or just somewhere where it's a little bit more respectful. And I wasn't there, and I can elaborate on the details if necessary, but I think it's just a general reminder, and I agree with that personally. I think that we're a community, and anybody that's volunteering to be on a committee or be a committee chair, we can't be expected to be perfect, but I think that if there's a concern, it should be handled delicately between the council and that person directly, and rather than being in an open forum like this. But you can deal with it how you are, but it did come to me as a concern from a resident.
I would suggest, being second in charge, that you not kick the can down the road, but share this information with Dave when he returns.
Okay.
And let him decide how to approach the council. We should go into executive session, or it's a one-off. And
Yeah, I really think this was probably a one-off. It is extremely rare that I hear concerns raised like this, but the person's point was not about the concern being raised. It was about naming of the names, and
well, yes, there should be some sensitivity to that.
you do have the mechanism for executive session.
Yes.
So maybe that would be a good place to use it if you have to.
So,
Something for you to think about.
all right, our quick minute left with you, council. Any question? And we do usually open it up to our guests.
Okay.
Guests,
Quickie. You started this 2 years ago. And we did it in the art committee. 2 years, 2 consecutive terms for the committee chair. That kind of eliminates, I don't want to leave, or I wish they would leave. Because it's worked fine with us right now in our committee.
So you mean having predetermined term limits?
Yeah, I mean, it was suggested
Yeah.
that,
yeah, there, and that hopefully might be something that we can,
look at.
well, it gives the council with the new bylaws, the definition of what is a council committee, what's a
Yeah.
combined committee, what a resident committee, has conditions that go along with that. So once that's empowered, then we can sit and say, okay, you need to have it. And I have been, we need, if you're gonna do a committee that's important, you should have a vice chair and you should be taking minutes. So you have a secretary, but that's my old fashioned way.
Yeah, before I leave, I just want to mention, one of the things that was on our open item list, not related to that at all, was there was a question raised at a meeting, you'll remember, Evelyn, about an INA, about what to do in the case of an emergency with our pets. So we have update of sorts, and I think you may have been told, but I'll just confirm it so that we're on the same page. Specifically related to an evacuation or a fire, Tom met with or talked to the fire chief. And they indicated that there's a relatively uniform system in place now that pet owners will have a magnet that tells, or a number of magnets somewhere, and I don't remember where Tom said, I think we're gonna put them on the utility doors or something.
The panel inside, the fuse box.
Oh, the fuse box, okay, I know he worked out with fire chief, but we're gonna provide those magnets, I think we're gonna sell them for $1 or something, I don't know, $4, whatever. It's not for a moneymaker, it's so that those people that have pets, can put that in to the agreed upon place, and if you have 2 pets or whatever. I think they're all dog stickers. But I wonder if there could be cat and dog.
There has to be.
Yeah, you don't mix cats and dogs.
Oh, I know. I'll get strung up by my toes. I saw dogs, I'm sure there are probably cats and dogs, but they should be coming sometime soon.
I have a cat and a dog.
Okay. You need one of each. Sign them up for 2.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you,
Thanks for
everyone.
coming.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, I would like to do is pass this down. I think that is revealing. Why don't you update us, Beth Ponder, person of Provence?
I brought this up to Tom Tango at one of his open sessions. About-
Open office Q&A.
Right. Cause I brought this up a couple of months ago, and I think in Q&A, and Pet Ponders had been trying to call other CCRCs to see what they do, but you just get marketing and we had tried calling the local police and didn't get very far, but Tom Tango had the direct meeting, so it was one-on-one, and we got what I think is a good answer, or at least the best that we could hope for.
Why don't you tell everybody what the answer is?
Okay. We're gonna be getting these magnets. I think we can ride on them, I'm not sure, cause I haven't, seen them. So the fire department knows what pets are there. And it will be on the fuse box right inside the door, cause I was told the very first thing the fire department does, turn the electric off in that apartment. And they'll see the sticker right there. There was also, will we have our medical updates? There's supposed to be one for our pets too, what happens to them, the vets. So we all need to make sure those are updated. And I think we'll put them in the same place as our information.
So where the most forms are, there'll be something there, so.
Inside our cabinets, we have this thing for our own personal medical information. I think it's supposed to go in there also. I don't know how well known that is. But I know someplace when I came, we signed one or something, but those kind of things need to be updated. And I think we all got one when we got our update for our sales form. About pets, I'm pretty sure it was in there too.
Good, well, that's a wonderful way the group reached out and got a good resolution.
Yes.
Is there any idea of maybe having that in Chanticleer or Woodland Life to identify for other people?
Yeah, I'll contact Tom, see if he wants to do that. If not, there will be one in the Chanticleer and definitely Woodland Life.
Good, well, that was excellent result. Okay, any further things on the council? Okay, yes, Carl.
I'm not sure where we left this whole discussion on beds, adequate beds. Are we gonna have a council discussion in the future on this? I'm not sure where we left the whole issue on adequate number of beds. Are we going to schedule this becomes a future item to discuss?
Well, I think she pretty well articulated the philosophy and the procedure that they use. You know, I guess at any given moment, there may be, you know, the tank is full, you can't put anybody more into it, but, I think what we suggested was let her talk about it. I think to me, she answered it as fully as I think that you could ever get an answer, but do we want to bring it up and ask her to, I think she agreed that maybe it's something for like Q&A.
Yeah.
All right, so.
Okay, this-
So it would be, I guess, for the council that's here now, the 8 of us, do a message to her that we would like this subject addressed officially maybe at the next Q&A.
No, I would rather that before a Q&A is scheduled, that we have a discussion amongst ourselves about this.
You wanna go into executive session? Or do you want a special session? Let us know what you want.
I would like to see it part of our discussion. Doesn't need to be executive, but I'd like to see it on the agenda at our next meeting.
Next meeting will be the 17th, and the Q&A is on the 16th. Okay, okay, so I have we've done years. You want a 30 years? A Cyclops? Okay, we'll,
Move to adjourn.
okay, we have moved to adjourn all,
I still have a question.
oh, okay, go ahead.
My request was that the Q&A not be scheduled before we have our own discussion.
Yes, right. We will not ask her to do anything until we've had our session.
I'm fine, thank you.
All right, I have a motion to my right to get out of here. Do I have an agreement to my left that that's okay? All right, it's another way of saying meeting adjourned 8-0.
Thank you.
Tom Gilder, it's amazing. You've been out of office for weeks and you haven't lost the touch.
It's like riding a bike. You just get up there and keep pedaling. And take no prisoners.
I just, you know, when I get the dinner menu, I make an order. At the same time, I put my reservations through. So I just emails to